Hi everyone, welcome to Cook Farm Chickens. This is part 3 of the online chicken keeping course. This week's going to be about cockerels, or roosters if you're American. First off, apologies for last week's video. I didn't realise until I was putting it up that the wind was audible. We've been battered by storms lately here. We're an old farmhouse and the wind coming down the chimney. I'm so used to it I don't even hear it until I listen back on the video, so sorry if that was distracting. We've got another storm today, of course we do, because I need to do this. I have tried to block the chimney, but I'm now aware of it, I can hear it, so it might come through on the video again, so apologies for that. Thanks for all the support so far on the channel in general, and on the course. Please like the videos and subscribe to the channel. It's really helpful, shows me I'm doing the right thing, and helps me sort of do better and more videos for you guys in the future. So as always, any questions or anything, drop me a message or put something in the comments below. I'm behind on emails this week. I've been inundated with emails, so if you're waiting for a response from me about questions to do with this or bird inquiries, apologies, I will get back to you probably later on this afternoon. So cockerels, cockerel rooster, they are male chickens, that's it. You only need one if you're intending to breed, but it does depend on what you are breeding, so you will need a cockerel of each species if you are breeding them. Cockerels don't mind what hen they're mating with, what particular breed they're mating with. They won't stick to their own. They will produce crossbreeds, no problem at all. A tiny little bantam cockerel will try his luck with a big breed bird. It's hilarious to watch, but they will. So you don't need, I covered this in the last video about eggs. I'll just mention it again now. You do not need a cockerel if you don't want to breed. A chicken will lay eggs without a cockerel. Don't need one, but I think I covered that in the last video. So do you need them for protection? Not particularly. Cockerels will defend their girls, but they will defend them quite poorly. They're quite cowardly. When it comes to predators, they will run. They won't particularly put themselves in harm's way. If a hen is being attacked by a bird of prey, or any sort of bird from above, the cockerel will try his best to defend the girl, but he will more likely end up dead himself. Things like foxes or ground predators, they'll just run. The only predator a cockerel rooster will defend its hens against on a regular basis is you, because you're in his territory and he doesn't perceive you as a particular threat. So that's why you get the ankle biters, like the little Jack Russells of the chicken world. They will go for your ankles because they don't particularly see you as a threat. And you're in their territory. You're taking his girl's eggs. You're touching the nests. You're in and around his bits. He will attack you. But foxes, no. They won't even warn you. They won't shout or crow if a fox is there. They're not burglar alarms or anything like that. If you want that, you want to get yourself a goose. Cockerels will not do that. They are all mouth cockerels in general. There are different types of different parts of the year. They're more aggressive. They're a lot more aggressive in the springtime, and in their first year of life, they're quite placid, quite docile. When they hit their first breeding season, which would be around about a year old if they were hatched in the spring, that's when their sort of true colours come out. So everyone knows cockerels are noisy. They are very noisy. Is there anything you can do about this? I have done a video on this. I'll put it up here, little link. That covers it in more detail. I'll cover it briefly here. There are old wives' tales, myths, possible methods of keeping a cockerel quiet. The reality is, not only do they not work or work a little bit, you shouldn't be doing them. You just should not be doing them. A cockerel crows, it's a natural thing. It's not like a badly behaved dog that's barking that you can train out of the bird. That is what they do. a cockerel is making its noise, it's a territory claim. That's why it crows. It's protecting its territory, and it will always do it. There is nothing you can do to stop it. If you put a crow collar on, that's the one I hear a lot of. Still a bit of a grey area whether actually they're legal or not. Regardless of if they're legal, I think they are in America. In America, there's no problem. You just shouldn't be using them. It restricts the cockerel's windpipe, and it stops them from breathing in enough air to expel it in a crow. If you put a crow collar on, it is extremely distressed. I won't put any links to videos of people doing this because it shouldn't be done, but if you're so inclined, you can look for these videos on YouTube. There are videos of people that agree with it. They are all American, and they're putting the crow collar on, and you'll see how distressed those birds are. And then once they've stopped flapping and fighting, they just sit in the corner, completely dishevelled, because you've taken away the one thing they have that they're naturally doing. That they will literally die of depression with a crow collar on. It shouldn't be done. So, how do you make it easier? It's one of the things. If you live in a built-up area, just do not have a cockerel. There is no way of doing it without your neighbours complaining. There truly isn't, unless you've got deaf people either side. But I mean, you can hear a cockerel from so far away. We had a cockerel that he was a beautiful boy, which I sold on because we didn't need more of that breed. So I sold him on. Absolutely huge bird he was. He was a bluebell. About 3 months later, I met the man who brought him at a poultry auction, and he told me that they put the bird at the bottom of a field which is 3 acres away from his farmhouse, and it was still waking him and his wife up in the morning. They are loud, so it's not your immediate neighbours either side of you that are going to be complaining about cockerels. It'll be someone 2 blocks away, because they will still hear the thing. So if you're in a built-up area, I just wouldn't go there. You're going to cause yourself a lot of stress, a lot of complaints, potential fines. You're going to upset all your neighbours. I just wouldn't even go there. Okay, so aggression in cockerels, it's a little bit personality driven, really. You get some cockerels that are really friendly, really placid, some that are little shits, to be honest. It's completely down to the personality and temperament of the particular bird. There's no rule, there's no one way of saying a certain breed is this inclined. They might be more inclined to be placid, but you'll always get the one that is aggressive. As I said, it's generally around the springtime they're really aggressive, and you can be lulled into sort of a false sense of security with cockerels. So if you've had a hatch, and you've kept some of them back, and now you've got the father bird and you've got his sons, you are fooled into believing they're absolutely fine. They live together all the way through the summer into the autumn, winter, and they're sleeping together, they're cuddled up, they're eating, drinking, there's absolutely no problems, they're not fighting, and you think, oh brilliant, I can keep these cockerels. They're not even particularly crowing, it's only the dad that's crowing, so they're all going to live as a happy family, and they do until the next spring, when his sons are now a year old and looking for their own birds. Chickens are incestuous, they don't care who they're mating with. The dad will then fight to the death with his sons over the females in the flock. And it will happen overnight, it will happen without warning. So don't be fooled into thinking your cockerel is all nice and friendly and placid with other cockerels. It's just that at that particular time of year, there's no problem. As soon as the girls come out and it's all the hormones are raging, it's a completely different story. It really is. There are exceptions. You can have 2 brothers that have always lived together and they've got them fine. But you can't guarantee that. And the consequences of getting it wrong or not seeing the signs before it gets bad could potentially be deadly for the losing male. If you are going to have more than one cockerel in the same pen, because it can be done, but really it is down to space. If you've got a small area back in the backyard or an enclosed pen, I wouldn't have more than one. If you've got a very, very large area, and I mean a minimum of sort of 10 square meters, you can get away with 2, 3, if there are enough girls. You want at least 8, 10 girls to one cockerel. So you'd need a pen of 20, 30 girls really, to have two cockerels. It's and large enough to keep those birds. So I would stick to the one in general. If you put them in separate coops, they won't fight because they can't get to each other, but they will scream at each other. It's a myth that cockerels only crow in the mornings, sort of. It is true, but it's the reasoning is wrong. So a cockerel crowing has absolutely nothing to do with the sun coming up at all, which is why these blackout boxes, which are cover, is a way of stopping them crowing, so there's no light coming in, they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because it's not the sun that triggers the cockerel to crow, it's the wild birds, it's the dawn chorus. A cockerel's crow is its territory. It's him getting up high and shouting for every other bird in the area, this is my territory. So as soon as other birds, other species, sparrows, pigeons, what have you, start their dawn chorus, the cockerel will crow, because he's telling those birds, do not come here to find your breakfast, this is my territory, this is my food. And even if he's locked in the black box and he can hear those, he will crow. So it's not sunlight, and he will crow all day long if he needs to. So once he's done his morning fight off the dawn chorus and then all those birds have flown away, he has no particular reason now to crow unless something triggers him, and then he will crow. And this could be anything. It's generally other birds, but in a society or what humans have done in built up areas, it could be anything. So a car alarm will trigger a cockerel, a car beeping its horn, a lorry's air brakes, a train horn, fire alarm, an aeroplane going overhead. All of these noises will trigger a cockerel to crow. If you live in a particular busy, noisy area, he just won't stop. He will be crowing all day long. And you hear cockerels crowing at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's because he's heard the bloke down the road start his Harley Davidson. So he starts crowing. And it's not one crow. He will crow and crow until he is sure that that threat to his territory has gone. So you can have situations where we are, our orchard, when we've got all the birds free ranging, there's a train track. The train comes through and every now and again they blow their horns as they come through. That triggers our male turkey instantly, so he goes off gobbling. The reaction to the train horn and the turkey now puts these cockerels that are closest to him, they start going, and it goes around the farm in a circle, round and round, and they'll go for an hour because they're all shouting at each other. By the time they settle down and stop, someone sees a crow and shouts at that, and then it starts again. So it potentially can go on and on and on all day, and then that's when it becomes problematic for yourself and neighbours, because it's an incredibly noisy environment. So it's more complicated than it sounds on why cockerels crow and why they're so noisy and hated. They are, however, beautiful birds. They are striking. It's like a lot of bird species, it's the males that have all the fancy feathers. That brings us on to how to identify a cockerel in your flock. When they're fully grown, this is easy because they look completely different. You can pick them out immediately, and it's a number of things you can see from the picture. Much longer tails, much more vivid colours, the feathering patterns on the back is different to a female hen. The actual shape of the bird is different to a female hen. They have much longer, finer feathers around the neck and throat. The saddle feathers, as I said, even underneath, even like that fluff you get under the hen, even on the male, that is different. And that's all to do with when they're fighting, their feathers come out, so they're more sleek than a female who uses her feathers for warmth on the eggs. The male doesn't need to do that, so his feathers are much smaller, meaning when he gets pecked and grabbed by the other males, those feathers come out easier. So there's a sort of a different evolution on the feathers for the different sexes of the bird there. The age that all these attributes come out, however, is dependent upon the breed. So if you're buying adult birds, it's very obvious what is male or female. If you're buying younger birds, this can be quite tricky, and this is where a lot of people feel they've been tricked by the farmer to get rid of his cockerels. Now that does happen. I've seen it happen. It's even happened to me when I first started this and didn't know what I was looking at. I got tricked big time. I went and brought 14 bantams, unsexed. As I've done another video on this as well, about how to not get scammed, because I know now. I brought 14 of these bantams unsexed. Never buy a bird unsexed because it means it's a cockerel. And the bloke said, yeah, they're too young, I don't know, the bantams, you can't sex them this age. As you can see, they all look the same, so how can you tell? So you'll get at least a few females out of that. The reason they all look the same was because they were all male, and they were. So I had 14 cockerels, and I just paid him full price. You live and learn. But I myself, I've sold cockerels as females accidentally. I am much better through it now, but certainly at the beginning, it's really tricky with some breeds to tell the difference, and the people want young birds. So at full grown, you can tell. When they're young, it's tricky. The bantam breeds, it can be up to 6 months before you can tell what they are. Silkies are the worst. To sex a silkie, it's almost impossible until the thing is literally crowing or laying eggs. They are identical until they then crow, and then suddenly all the male stuff comes out. We'll move on to that because there's something called beta male. You've got alpha male and beta male. So we'll get onto that in a minute. But I'll put some pictures up of like the younger males, and you can see just how hard it is. I mean, I'm going to point them out, and oh yeah, I can see that's got a bit of red comb. But when you've got things in a barn or a box and they're all moving around, sometimes the females' red combs are brighter and bigger than the males at a young age. So if you buy young birds, there is no way a farmer can say 100% that is a female if it's a young bird, unless it's a sex-linked bird. Now I'll cover sex-linking when we go on to chicks and things in another video, but sex-linking means that when the birds are hatched, the male and female chicks are literally different colours. They're completely different colours, so you know that's sex linking. There's not many birds, breeds that have that. Generally the chicks all look the same. If it's a sex linked bird, then you can sell them as 100% female, and you know Isa Browns, for example, are one of these breeds. Easy peasy. One's yellow, one's sort of orange. You can tell. Ones that look the same, even at 16 weeks sometimes, it can be difficult. And with bantams, much more. So if you're buying young bantams, if you're buying young chickens, if it's a large breed bird and you 100% cannot and do not want a cockerel, do not buy them younger than 16 weeks. If you're buying bantams, realistically, 5 months. Don't buy them younger than 5 months. 4 months at a push if you really can tell if the bird started laying, but really 5 months, you'd want to be to absolutely be clear. Okay, so alpha and beta males, what do I mean by this? So cockerels are quite clever, even if it isn't their brain being clever, it's their genetics being clever. When you hatch a load of birds, it's about 50-50 whether it's going to be male or female. And this will be true in a clutch of eggs. It'll be 50-50. It's slightly different with the first batch of the year, so your first hatch of eggs for the year generally will be male. That's an evolutionary trait, but we'll get onto that when we do breeding and chicks. But generally 50-50 male or female. So you're gonna, if you've got 20 birds, 10 will be male on chicks. These males know that to be able to breed, to work their way up the pecking order, they will have to fight the dominant male, which will generally be their dad. The dad is a lot bigger, a lot wiser, a lot stronger than them. So they're not going to challenge him. Certainly not as chicks, certainly not as young males. You will get an upstart crow. You will get an upstart that will have a pop, he will have a go, and he will very quickly be smacked down to size. So what they do is they keep quiet and they hide. So you will have the alpha males of that batch that start to show the wattles, start to show their males by sort of walking around with their wings out and being all bolshy. You can tell they're males and generally the farmer will have pulled those out. They're the ones that generally get into a lot of scraps, and probably if it was left to a wild environment, would end up being sort of bullied out of the coop, the area or territory, or killed by the dad, because the dad's not going to stand for that. So they're the alpha males. Then you have beta males, and beta males think, well, I'm not going to start any trouble then. I'm going to keep myself to myself, eat my grain, and carry on with mum and my sisters. And they don't release the hormone that develops the male attributes. They can't fully control it. It's not a conscious sort of decision. It's a hormonal decision. So they will slowly start. It's almost like you get some lads like late puberty. It's a bit like that. So they will look like females. They won't have any of the nice feathering. They won't be crowing. They won't be fighting. They won't be showing any aggression. And they will look like females. And they can keep this up for a long time. I mean, they can keep it up for 6, 8, 9 months, hiding as a female. By this point, they're well and ready for sale. So they get sold as a female because they look like one and they're behaving like one. As soon as you buy them and take them home, very quickly, within a fortnight, that bird has realised, Dad's not here, there's no alpha males here, there's no one threatening me, I can claim this territory. All the hormones are released, the bird is now crowing, and all the feathering starts to come through very, very quickly. So your nice hen that you sold, within a week or two, you're now getting a phone call saying this is a cockerel. Silkies are the worst for this, the absolute worst. They will hide and hide and hide as a female, but they're not. And then as soon as you get them home, they claim the territory, and all the male stuff comes out. The problem with this is the person didn't want a male chicken, they wanted a female, so they return it to the farmer. If they're a good farmer, they take it back because they've incorrectly sold it and it's their mistake. However, you've now got a problem because you can't return that cockerel now to the flock. All the hormones are out now, it's now aggressive, it's now fighting for territory. You can't return it because it will fight your breeding male, it will fight the other males there. So it's then at that point, it either goes off to market to other breeders, we do breeders markets where we sort of change bloodlines and things. If you're lucky, it will go off to one of them and someone will take it. If not, it will be in solitude for some time. So in the wild, you can see why they do this beta mailing, to protect themselves until they're at a time they can have their own territory. In captivity, it's a bit of a detriment to them. It can sort of condemn them a little bit later on down the line. So this brings me on to trans chickens, which is not the official term, and this is not the same thing as beta males. And it's almost a bit of a rumour, but it is true that chickens can change their sex, sort of. And it's a little bit like the great Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park, who, when they discover that all female chickens are breeding. Dinosaurs, not chickens. That would be a bizarre film. All female dinosaurs are breeding. And they mention it's to do with frogs changing the sex and the dinosaurs have got frog DNA. Well, they sort of missed the trick a little bit there because obviously dinosaurs evolved into birds. Well, birds can do this. Birds have the ability to do this, and chickens certainly so. And it's to do with when you've got a society of birds that are all female and there's no male in sight, so they never come into contact with a male. They come from large farms that the chicks are sort of hatched in sheds under heat lamps and incubators. They never see their mum or dad, it's all humans. The male birds are plucked out really quick. They only ever live with females. They then get sent off to homes or other farms, still more female, more female. After a couple of sort of cycles of this and generations of this, if you've got an older bird that has never seen a male in its life, and all these new birds that come through are still female. As we said in the last video to do with eggs, the chickens have got 2 ovaries, but they only use one. The other one is redundant. What can happen is the active ovary that's producing eggs will stop and it will shut down, and you have a hormonal shift which activates the redundant sleeping ovary, but it doesn't open like as an ovary. It releases hormones to turn that bird into a male, but it's not a complete transformation. So you will have a female hen that's been laying eggs for you for years, all of a sudden will start crowing, and it is a crow, but it sounds different to a cockerel crow. But it is a crow. It's a distinct, like, I can hear a crowing from my female hen, and it's because she's going through this change. She will no longer lay eggs. Her wattles will grow bigger. Her comb will get bigger and brighter. She will start being aggressive. She will start fighting with the other hens. She will claim the territory as her own. If she's not the dominant hen in the group, she will fight the dominant hen because she's now taking on the role of the cockerel. There are even cases of this redundant ovary now producing semen, so she can actually mate now and fertilise eggs. So she has, for all intents and purposes, changed sex, but she will still look like a hen. She won't grow the feathers, the tail feathers, the spurs, all of that. She will still look like a hen, but she will carry herself like a cockerel. She will walk like a cockerel, she will fight like one, and she will now sound like one, and she will mate the other birds, because obviously chickens don't have reproductive organs like mammals do. They don't have male and female sexual parts. They all have a vent, and everything's internal. So this is much easier for them to do, and it is rare, but it's not like unheard of. Even one of my hens that I have sold has done this, and I was called to go and have a look, and it's the only case I've ever seen. But it was one of my birds, and I know she was a female. I know she is, but there she was, now a cockerel. What problems does this cause depends on your circumstance. She's not going to crow like a cockerel does all the time. You're not going to have the constant territory crowing, but she will do it maybe once or twice a day, maybe even once or twice a week. So that noise could potentially be a problem for you. You've got a bird that no longer lays eggs, so it's costing you money in food, so it's no good to a farmer now. As a pet, as long as the aggression calms down and she's not hurting yourself or your children or your pets or anything like that, there's no reason why things can't carry on in a sort of bizarre little way. So yeah, I mean, the official word for it is spontaneous sex reversal, and it is a documented phenomenon. So the science behind it, if you want to sort of get the technical term, is the bird is genotypically female, but she's phenotypically male. So it's a pure hormone thing. Obviously the whole sex change thing within humans is a political hot topic, so I'm going to word this very carefully, but it's almost like a female to male transition. You would take testosterone to make yourself male. So even though your genes are female, you're now chemically making yourself male. It's not exactly the same though. These are chickens, not humans, but that's the easiest way to sort of understand it. That's what's happening. So physiological changes are all hormone driven, which is why they don't get the feathers and all that other kind of thing, the spurs and that, because they are still female, but they now can produce chicks as a male. It's bizarre. If anyone's ever had an experience of this, please put it in the comments, because like I said, I've only ever come across it once, and I had never heard of it until I witnessed it myself, and then I've done a bit of research, and I was like, oh, blimey hell, this is actually, it's rare but common enough to be documented, and quite a lot of research has been done on it. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I'll put a little link actually in the description to a bit of a write-up. I think this was from the University of Illinois, has done a research that I read once. I'll try and find that and put it, if I find it, I'll put it in the description, there you can have a bit of a read of it. It's quite interesting. So that's pretty much it when it comes to cockerels. Obviously, if you want them, just do it with care, really, and consideration for your neighbours, because they will complain. But any questions on this or anything, put them in the comments, send me a message. I'll happily answer them if I can. The next video, part 4, we will start on chicken disease. I've written this, it's quite long, so it'll probably be in a few videos. I might break it down into sort of types of disease, like physical or respiratory. So we do respiratory diseases, physical diseases, maybe in separate videos, otherwise it's quite long and boring. We'll also cover avian influenza. Obviously that's a big hot topic at the moment. That will probably also be its own separate video, and I will have to try really hard not to rant about the inefficiency of APFA and DEFRA, because that gets me into trouble, and that's my own personal opinion. So there we are. So I really hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching. As I said at the beginning, please like and subscribe. It's really helpful. And thank you for watching. We've been Court Farm Chickens. We'll see you.